Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lisa's Friday Night Oasis, which is a weekend summary of what's been happening in Halifax County, Virginia, the state, and our country. I've been a little under the weather the last couple days, not feeling good. Little tummy issue. And my poor little kitty cat had to go to the vet for the first time in years today. This morning we went to a place in Chatham called Cherry Stone on the recommendation of a friend of mine. And it turns out, his name is Freddie, that I've got hot chocolate tonight. I haven't drank this in probably 3 years. Too sweet. Anyway, it turns out that my cat Freddie has a severe urinary tract infection. His hair was losing some color. We thought it was from the sun. I don't think this is related to the urinary tract infection, but anyway, and then his appetite increased tremendously, but he was losing weight a lot. And then he started urinating around the house. He's never done this before. So anyway, we got him taken care of, and he got a shot, and they said bring him back in 2 weeks. But let me tell you what, having him seen and getting that shot was $354. I almost peed all around the vet's office after that. I was expecting it to be maybe $100, but $300. Oh my God. How does anybody afford pets? When my husband had to re-up his insurance this year, it had some little thing in there about legal assistance and pet insurance. And I just laughed. I was like, why would anybody get pet insurance? Now I understand. But hopefully the antibiotic will take care of it and he'll be good to go. I have 2 cats, and they're brother and sister. The female, her name is Mercury. We call her Merc. And the male is Freddie. And they look just alike, except they're black and white. I think they call them tuxedo cats. But one of them has a little bit more of a black or white area on the face. That's how you can tell them apart. Of course, now, with Freddie being so sick, they're easy to tell apart. But I'm not a huge pet person, even though I've always had pets, because I had 3 children. And I feel that having pets teaches kids empathy and how to take care of things and be responsible. I don't think I did too hot with that, because we always seem to have issues with our pets. But these 2 particular cats I adopted from an animal shelter as a gift for my granddaughter. And then it became too much, so I took one of the cats back, which was the male, Freddie, and had him for a few months. And then I was asked to take the second cat back, because the relationship my daughter was in at the time was a guy who was physically abusive to the cat, and she was quite scarred after that. It took a good couple of years. She wouldn't even go near a door, because apparently she got shut in the door. And I just don't have any tolerance for people abusing animals like that. I don't understand it. But apparently he also ran some kind of, what is it when you get chickens to fight each other? Cockfight? Something. I always laugh when I say that. I'm so juvenile. But he had some kind of rooster fighting ring or something at one time. I don't think it was in Halifax County. I think it was in Pennsylvania. But anyway, that's long since been over, and we have the 2 cats, and we've had them for going on 5 years now. Little Friday and little Mercury, our little kitty cats. But I tell you, veterinaries are expensive. They were good there and thorough, I think, at Cherry Stone, and were highly recommended. But my God, the cost. Whew. Anyway, so what's up this week? I want to start from the national level and work my way down. Anybody who listens to me knows the first thing I'm going to talk about is Epstein. This has really gotten deep and dirty. And I think it's incredibly splintering within the Republican Party. But I don't think there's going to be... Why is it every time I get on this thing I get the hiccups? Okay, I got my water for that. I'm prepared. But I don't see how anybody can defend this in any way, shape, or form. And for... What was that girl's name? The Fox reporter girl, Megyn Kelly? Yeah, that was her name. To get on there and say that she knew someone who was close to Epstein, and he wasn't really a pedophile. He just liked him on the younger side, the young teens, like 14, 15. And that's not the same thing as a 5-year-old. No, it's not the same thing as a 5-year-old, but it is a child. Under 18 is a child. That law was established for a reason. And she has a 14-year-old. Do you think she's okay for some 50, 60-year-old man flopping on her 14-year-old? Any of you out there who has a daughter, please tell me that you think this is egregiously wrong. Man, I don't know what I'd do if I had that situation where somebody was, I don't know. Of course, there have been some things in the past, having 3 daughters, that were not copacetic, but I'm not going to bring that up right now. But I think that trying to justify sexual relationships with a minor is inexcusable. It's horrid. And I don't think it is a value that the Republican Party wants to carry, or that churches want to carry, or anybody who is supporting this regime is going to continue to endure. Normalizing it? Is that the right word? So I pulled up a little summary of this, because I don't think if you only watch one news source, you're not going to get a very full scope interpretation or telling of what has been happening here. I think it's going to be kind of selective, which is why I always say it's important to use many news sources. AP, Reuters. If you don't like CNN, fine. If you don't like Fox, fine. If you don't like, ABC, fine. But find something that's middle of the road. For me personally, I really like independent news, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't really watch them. I listen to them in the car. And I'm going to talk about one of them actually in a little bit, because something was brought up on that podcast that I thought was just fascinating. So they released, now bear in mind, this is not the FBI or the DOJ releasing these emails. This is the Epstein estate. They were subpoenaed to release documentation in regards to Epstein, and that's what they did. They got emails and documents from the Epstein estate covering communications between 2008 and 2019. So that's 11 years worth. Many of these documents mention Trump by name. I want to bring this up so you can follow along with me. There we go. You should be able to see that there. Many of these documents mentioned him by name. In one analysis, I think it was like half. Sorry, I lost my place. I still don't feel well. Forgive me. Here, he's referenced in over half of the email threads in this release. One email dated April 2nd was the one that talked about the dog barking. I want you to realize that the dog hasn't barked. It's Trump. The victim spent many hours in my house with him, and he's never once been mentioned. Which bears the question of why. How is that possible? Number 4, another email in February of 2019. He writes to himself, Trump knew of it and came to my house many times during that period. He never got a massage, so what did he get? And then there's 2016 email exchanges between Epstein and Michael Wolff. This is the thing that kills me about Michael Wolff. Is this transitioning? I'm not sure what you're seeing here. And hide it back again. That should go back. Is that this author, he's put out several books about Trump. He was in the process of gathering information. He had been interviewing Epstein. He was going to do a book about him before he committed suicide. And he knew so much information and wasn't telling. So what culpability does the media have? What culpability does he have? Because he knew all this stuff. They discussed all this. And then there was these I don't want to go into the thing about Bubba because that's just gross and I don't want to think about it. And I don't want to talk about details of what did or didn't happen as far as physical contact. But the most, I want to say, I started to say stunning, but it's not stunning to me, actually, was that Trump said he cut all ties and had nothing to do with him. I think it was around 2000. Yet after he was convicted, and I think he was released on what they're calling a sweetheart deal, he had Thanksgiving with him in 2017. So as a sitting president, because he was president 2016 to 2020, as a sitting president, he had a convicted child trafficker in his home to break bread over a sacred American holiday. That's just where I was like, wow. I don't know how many more of these lies people can swallow or defend. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And by trying to change the narrative to make it acceptable that it's okay for old men to have sex with pre-puberty or at puberty teenage girls is so horrific. It just shakes me to my foundation. You know, as a mother of 3 girls, and I know how difficult it was raising them by myself. And then when I later got married and they had a stepfather, it's difficult. And all of you out there who are parents, and I know a lot of you that have teenage daughters, and regardless of your political affiliation, to embrace a cluster of people that abide by this is untenable. It's unconscionable. And it's so unchristian. I almost have to redefine what Christianity is because I don't buy into any of what I see. So yeah, here it's all out and it's about, and I can give you a link online where you can read through this stuff. But this isn't something you can call a hoax or say it's made up or anything. Here it is. And I do hope that for anyone that tries to choose to defend it can really sit back and look in the mirror and rethink this whole situation. Because I truly believe this is only the tip of the iceberg. I think this is going to get worse. And I think this is something that our society needs to revisit any sense of shame within our culture. Is there any? Because if there's not, how is anybody a Christian? How does anybody follow teachings of doing good? So I don't know. It's awful. It's disgusting. And I just wish we could get rid of the whole situation. I wish it was a election year where we could just vote all of this out, or people would grow a conscience and just resign, something. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think this is totally going to tear us apart, and I think there's going to be a lot of ugliness before any healing begins. What else is up in the national news? Well, the shutdown's over. Oh, that was right. Personally, I felt that the concession to continue the Obamacare subsidies should not have been relinquished, which would have kept the shutdown going. That's how I felt about it. I wrote a letter we have 2 senators in Virginia, of course. Every state has 2 senators. You know, some kids don't know that. One voted for the shutdown. One voted to agree with the Republicans to not continue it. And the one that didn't was Tim Kaine. Tim, is it Kaine? Kaine. Anyway, I wrote his office and I said, I just wanted to voice my opinion that I do not think you should concede this point of relinquishing Affordable Care Act subsidies so that people can afford to have insurance and not lose. Millions of people would lose insurance. They can't afford to pay anything. for other insurance. So this was a big help, and Medicaid and all that stuff. And I got a letter back that was very lengthy defending it. And the gist of it was, I feel like I did the right thing because we can't afford to keep the government shut down. That's not going to solve anything. Blah, blah, blah. It sounded like he was feeling a bit defensive and offensive at the same time. You could tell that, in my opinion, the tone of the email was he kind of had his gander up. He didn't like being criticized for joining the Republicans, which, he's entitled to feel that way, but he's supposed to be representative of the constituents. And I feel like Virginia sent a clear message in this last election cycle. That, they want change and want to get back to some sanity, I call it. But he didn't go for that. So anyway, so I got a letter, and I'm sure it was sent to everybody that he probably got a lot of emails, saying the same thing, that you shouldn't compromise, that the Republicans should agree to keep the insurance subsidy. But they didn't. So the government opened back up, and some new things were put into the bill. Sorry about that. It's spam. I get spam at all hours every day. It's Saturday night or Friday night, whatever it is. And I'm getting spam calls. Do you get those spam calls? Usually I just hang up and block them. But anyway, yeah, in the new thing is they've got 12 months to outlaw the sale of CBD products, which is terrible because I know a lot of people that use that medically that help treat things like arthritis and pain. What was the other thing? There was a couple things like that. Oh yeah, some of the senators paid themselves a bunch of money because I think their phone calls got monitored, so they felt entitled to $500,000 or something. There was 8 of them that got paid, and it's so unethical, and it's so beyond the pale of rules, and this is my question I want to ask people who still think that this country's going in a good direction. I mean, like, just really, are we not a country of laws? Are we not, a country that follows the rules? Clearly not. Clearly not. The examples coming from the top demonstrate that. But yeah, so that's what it is. I got some numbers on the election here in Halifax County, the final numbers that I've updated the website of all but one thing, and 52%, sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. 52% of Halifax County showed up to vote, which I guess is good, but why can't this be in the 90s? Why aren't more people voting? Is it a matter of transportation? I mean, you can take off work to go vote. If you need a ride, call somebody. There's plenty of people to offer rides. I always offer rides. Or is it just that you just don't care? I don't get it. So maybe in the midterms next year, we can do much, much better. I'm going to do my best to try to participate in voter registration drives. But I don't think it's so much as voter registration, because almost 80% of this county is registered to vote. Problem is, only half of those people are actually voting. I would love to see younger people targeted more, the 18-year, adults, 18-year-olds, not children under 18. I would love to see more of them out here participating in our local elections, because local elections are important. Speaking of local elections, in the interviews I have coming up this week, I've got a couple of good ones. On Monday, I'm meeting with Brian Brown of the Industrial Development Authority, and we're going to talk for a while. I'll probably publish that one on Tuesday. It's going to be a recording, not a live. And on Wednesday, I'm doing a dual interview between Robbie Smart, who is a Board of Supervisor member, and James Gordon, who ran to become a Board of They didn't run against each other, but he ran to become a Board of Supervisors member, but did not prevail. These two are interesting men. they've had some conflict. There's been some harsh words passed between the two. So we're going to sit down, the three of us, and chat and hash some things out. They were going to do this before the election, but Mr. Smart felt like he shouldn't do anything before the election, but he has agreed. And honestly, I'm surprised that, they've agreed to do this. So we're going to do this post-election. So that's going to be interesting. And if you have any questions you want me to ask, feel free to send me an email at Halifax Oasis, HALIFACTS Oasis @gmail.com, and I'll be happy to, if they're appropriate, bring these questions forward to this interview. I'm going to be, a big bone of contention I know is about solar, so that's going to be part of the discussion, and what their thoughts are post-election and going forward. And then we'll just hash out some other stuff and see how it goes. What else? Oh yeah, I covered Tri-County had an event on Monday, I think it was. I did it live, and it was almost like a giant flea market in their parking lot, but everything was free for families that need them. I mean, there was diapers, there was clothes out the wazoo. It was a really good community event, and they got a lot of support from businesses in the county that donated things. I got to get some coffee from Starbucks, because right now I don't go to Starbucks because of the strike. I know people might think that's stupid, but it makes me feel good. But I did have a cup of their coffee there and talked to a lot of people there and understood more about what they were doing, what their goals are, what their vision and mission is. And I haven't talked to anyone since then to see how well the turnout went, but I'm sure it was very successful. It's a good location, and they really had a lot of good stuff and good information. One thing was interesting was talking to the girl who works for the Virginia Department of Health, and she's like somebody that goes out to encourage people to breastfeed, because my question to her was, why wouldn't somebody want to breastfeed? My God, it's free, it's already heated, it's there, it's on demand. Who wants to fix those bottles and have to heat them up? And, plus it's better, it boosts your immune system. And I think the consensus was that a lot of it's lack of education, and it's young people, and they have different kind of perception or attitude of breastfeeding. Maybe it's because I'm old, but I just thought it was the best thing ever, just because of the convenience and, no expense and whatnot. And you just bond. You feel so close to that baby when you're nursing a baby. One thing they brought up too, they said about, people make it uncomfortable in public to breastfeed. I didn't even think about that. And that's right. That's been an issue, breastfeeding in public. It's like people need to get over themselves. It's natural. And we had a little bit of discussion about what they call it, the maternal wasteland. And I found out something that I didn't know, that Farmville is closing their maternities and obstetrics. I always have trouble saying that word. They're closing theirs as well. So rural areas are really going to suffer not having places for people to have their babies. What if there's an emergency? What if they need a C-section? They got to take an hour to get to a hospital. We don't want to have a baby in a car. But another thing that came out of that was interesting was they're talking about maybe getting what they call it. I think it was called a birthing center, where they use midwives. And we talked about doulas. Doulas are almost like assistants for midwives. They don't quite have all the training that a midwife does, but a midwife can actually deliver the baby, but I don't think a doula can. So that begat a conversation of, having some place that could serve, that could function as a birthing center using midwives. But I thought to myself, because I think it was Patrina, the lady who's the executive director, she said that she didn't look at childbirth as a medical event, but as a natural event. I kind of disagree with that, because too many things can go wrong. Yes, it is a natural event, but if you need help with it, because it is such a big event, I don't know. I just feel like people should have medical access easily for childbirth. But it made me think, is this another thing where women just can't get what they need, Like, whenever we're talking about medical issues or birth control or childbirth, I mean, these are all specific to women. And I don't hear anything about men's issues being a problem. They get whatever they need. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. So the Tri-County event was good. I'm glad I was there. And I'd love to cover more events like that. Please tell me about yours. If your church is having something cool going on, just don't ask me to attend services. I'd be happy to do that. Any other community thing, like, helping the community and outreach is what I'm trying to say, resources and whatnot, support. Please let me know. I'd be happy to cover that because I really, really enjoy talking to people. I enjoy these interviews, and I want the community to get to know each other more so than for me. All right. What's next up here? I wanted to talk about something I saw on one of my podcasts. I watched something called, it's called the Midas Touch Network, and a lot of people here probably won't like it because it is left-leaning. When I first started watching it a year ago, it was more middle of the road, but now it has swung to the left a little bit because the headlines are always shocking this, Trump totally breaks down, loses it. It's like, I don't like, well, it may be true. I just think we can tone the language down a little bit. Like, I've mentioned David Pacman before. He's like that too. It's sensationalistic, and I don't like that type of media. You can tell me what you need to tell me without having to bring out all the blow up adjectives. But it's not just the left doing it. The right does it too. Just the few Fox headlines I hear or see periodically online, it's like, really, God, come on, man, you can do better than that. Ugh. Obvious breakdown, loses it, terrified, terrorist, whatever. Just, I've got a mentality of like Walter Cronkite, just report. But anyway, but I do watch the Midas Touch Network because I do, he does really well with bringing up a lot of clips and things he always backs up what he says. There's no BS with it. Anyway, and he has really good interviews. He interviewed Ken Burns. Ken Burns is a documentarian, and he's done a Civil War documentary, a Native American documentary, a baseball documentary, and they're very in-depth, lengthy documentaries for PBS, Public Broadcast Network, Public Broadcast Service. Well, he's got one dropping this weekend on Sunday about the American Revolution. It's 12 hours in 6 parts. So there's a series of 6 shows, 2 hours each, total of 12 hours. I really want to watch it, and I hope I have time to. I prefer to binge watch things. So we'll see. But what he was talking about was great because Ben Masadas, the host of the Midas Network, he kept trying to connect it to now, and Ken Burns was trying to tell him that while history doesn't necessarily repeat, it mirrors, because some of the things going on now happened back then and have happened before in the past, just in a different way. It was really interesting. And he said most of the people, you're not going to hear you'll never have heard their names before, but what they did that brought the revolution about was so revolutionary, so brave, and and you never heard them. He said the stories of these people are what are so amazing. So, and obviously I would really recommend this because I liked, he said at the end of the Constitution of the Declaration of Independence, sorry, I'm really tired, that these men wrote, "We pledge our lives, our honor, and our fortunes to each other to make this great experiment of America work, of the United States work." And he was saying, this is what we need to circle back to. We need to circle back to what our values are, which is a democracy, and how we need to stick with each other to keep keep this experiment alive and going. And then he would tell some very specific stories about things men did. And he talked about George Harrison. I got the Beatles on the mind. He talked about George Washington, and, he was a wealthy man, and he was willing to give all of that up. And he spent so much time battling in the army that he lived in other people's houses or in tents, like TP tents, not in tents, for the better part of a couple years with the Continental Army, and the sacrifices he made for what he believed in, and the people that all went in together. Even though there were problems, there were still people enslaved, so you can't say free for all when that was going on. They were still going to put all this together and make all these sacrifices to do this. So anyway, he's telling all these American Revolutionary stories, and it's just beautiful, and talking about how we need to pledge to each other and get back to that foundation of what this country is founded on, because a lot of people have lost sight of it. But the thing that stood out the most to me was you cannot change someone's opinion even if you moved a mountain. Once somebody is ensconced in their belief, you're not going to change it. What we need to do is tell stories. Stories are what changes people. Stories are what get in to have people make that paradigm or directive different. And it's something I've always thought. If we got to know each other, if we have these conversations, if we talk to each other, without attacking, that change will become effective. So think about that. Think about that. And hopefully I'm going to have people be a little more open to talking to me. I've got some things lined up I'm working on where I can have two people from what we think is different spend time together and get to know each other, so we find that commonality, so that instead of having two opposite things, we start to blend and compromise these ideas. Some things aren't compromisable. I get that. Pedophilia, obviously. But I think these are the outsides. This is not the core of who we are. But if you get a chance to watch the Midas Network and see the interview with Ken Burns, it's really, really good. And watch the American Revolution 12-hour series by Ken Burns starting Sunday on PBS. I think that's another thing we need to do, is revisit our history to remember who we are and where we came from. And there's so much to put aside. That's just noise. Just noise. All right. What else? Oh, final thing. Next week's going to be a busy week for me. I'm finishing up getting a CDL license. I passed all my tests this week. I now have a learner's permit. I passed the general knowledge. I passed the air brakes. That was the hardest one because there's a lot of numbers in it, like PSI stuff. And I passed the passenger and I passed the bus. So I've passed all my endorsements, all my stuff. Now I just need to learn to drive and get the full license, and I'll be a CDL driver. I'm so proud of myself. See, you're never too old to learn new tricks. Always learn, always educate, always keep improving your life. I think that's pretty much it for this week. We'll see you soon. Pay attention next week. Good stuff coming up. Yeah. Take care. Be good.